3 true horror stories that were caught too late. By the time rescuers realized what had truly gone wrong, it was already too late. A man was trapped upside down, alone in the dark, with gravity slowly working against his body. If true horror stories rooted in real American events disturb you, subscribe now, leave a comment with your thoughts, and stay with this story, because this didn't happen in a movie. It happened underground, and there was no way to rewind what followed. Let's begin. Story 1. In November of 2009, John Edward Jones was a 26-year-old medical student living in Utah. He was a husband, a father, and someone deeply rooted in family life. Those who knew him described him as calm, curious, and optimistic. He had explored caves before, but never recklessly. On Thanksgiving weekend, John joined a small group of relatives and friends for what was meant to be a simple recreational cave exploration in Nutty Putty Cave, a popular but notoriously tight cave system near Utah Lake. Nutty Putty Cave had a reputation. It was not a wide, open cavern, but a complex network of narrow passages, sharp turns, and dead ends. Over the years, multiple rescues had already taken place there. Warning signs were posted. Maps were incomplete. Still, people continued to enter, believing they could handle it. John entered the cave with his brother Josh and several others. At first, everything felt normal. The group moved carefully through familiar sections, navigating low ceilings and narrow squeezes. As time passed, John became separated from the others while searching for a section known as the birth canal, a tight passage that opened into a larger chamber. The problem was that he wasn't in the birth canal. He had entered a different passage entirely. The tunnel John moved into was later described as barely wider than a human body, sloping downward at a steep angle. Thinking he was on the right path, he pushed forward inch by inch. The space narrowed further. The floor dropped away beneath him. Gravity pulled him forward faster than he expected. Within seconds, John slid into a vertical fissure and became wedged upside down. At first, he believed he could back out. He tried shifting his body, but the cave walls pressed tightly against his chest and hips. Every movement made him slide deeper. His arms were pinned beneath him. His feet were higher than his head. Blood rushed to his skull. Panic set in, but the darkness prevented him from understanding just how bad the situation was. When John didn't return, his brother Josh began searching. It took time to find him, and when Josh finally did, he saw only John's feet protruding from the rock. He attempted to pull him out, but the angle made it impossible. The cave constricted any leverage. Josh ran for help. Rescue teams arrived quickly, but the environment worked against them at every step. The passage was too narrow to turn around in. Rescuers had to crawl headfirst down the same tunnel John had entered. Communication was limited. Equipment had to be passed by hand through twisting corridors. Every minute mattered. By the time rescuers reached John, he had been upside down for hours. Doctors later explained that being inverted for prolonged periods causes the heart to struggle against gravity. Blood pressure increases in the head. Breathing becomes shallow as organs press against the lungs. Even without visible injury, the body begins to fail. Despite this, John remained conscious for much of the rescue. A complex pulley system was designed to extract him. Anchors were drilled into the cave walls. Ropes were threaded through carabiners. The plan required perfect alignment and slow, controlled movement. Any sudden shift could cause him to slip deeper, which is exactly what everyone feared. At one point, the system began to work. John's body moved upward slightly. Hope surged through the cave. But then one of the anchors failed. The rope snapped under tension. John slid further down into the fissure, becoming more tightly wedged than before. The space around his chest compressed further, making breathing even more difficult. From that moment on, the rescue became a recovery attempt that no one was willing to admit. The angle of the passage made it physically impossible to reposition John without pulling him deeper. Attempts to drill alternative access tunnels were evaluated but dismissed. The surrounding rock was unstable. Any vibration risked collapse. Time continued to pass, and John's condition deteriorated. After more than 24 hours trapped upside down, John Edward Jones died in the cave. His body could not be removed. Engineers, Rescuers and authorities concluded that any further attempts would put more lives at risk. Nutty Putty Cave was permanently sealed with concrete, entombing John where he had become trapped. A memorial plaque was placed near the entrance. The cave, once a recreational site, was closed forever. The aftermath reached far beyond the cave itself. Many of the rescuers involved required counseling. Some quit cave rescue entirely. Others left emergency response work for good, haunted by the knowledge that they had been so close to saving someone, yet powerless against the environment. The incident reshaped cave safety policies across the United States and became a cautionary tale taught in rescue training programs. For John's family, the loss was permanent and deeply public. His wife was left to raise their young daughter alone. The story circulated widely, not because of spectacle, but because of its unbearable realism. There was no villain, no crime, no supernatural force. Just a series of human decisions colliding with a place that offered no forgiveness. Nutty Putty Cave stands as a reminder that true horror does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it begins with curiosity, familiarity, and confidence. It waits until escape is no longer possible. And by the time the danger is fully understood, help arrives only to realize it cannot change the outcome. This was not a story of recklessness. It was a story of being caught too late, in a place where the earth itself refused to let go. Story 2. In the early morning hours of May 27, 1962, in the small coal town of Centralia, Pennsylvania, smoke drifted quietly from the ground near the local cemetery. It didn't rise dramatically or alarmingly. It moved slowly, almost politely, as if it belonged there. By the time officials understood what that smoke truly meant, an invisible fire had already embedded itself beneath the town, and there would be no way to stop it. Centralia was a tight-knit American mining town with just over 1,000 residents. Generations of families had lived there, many tied directly to the coal industry that ran beneath the hills. The town was modest but stable. Children rode bikes through quiet streets. Neighbors knew each other by name. There was no sense of danger, only routine. That routine began to unravel with a landfill fire. Each year, the town burned trash in a pit near the cemetery, a common practice at the time. When smoke lingered longer than usual that spring, volunteer firefighters were called in to extinguish it. They poured water into the pit, believing the fire was out. It wasn't. Beneath the surface, flames had slipped into an abandoned coal seam connected to a vast network of underground mines. Once coal catches fire underground, it does not burn like a normal fire. It creeps. The fire in Centralia spread slowly through the labyrinth of tunnels beneath the town. At first, no one noticed. Then basements began to fill with strange fumes. Vegetation turned yellow without explanation. Pavement cracked and buckled as heat rose from below. Residents complained of dizziness and headaches. Carbon monoxide detectors, where they existed, began sounding without warning. Officials assured the town everything was under control. Multiple attempts were made to stop the fire. Trenches were dug. Barriers were constructed. None of them worked. The mine network was too extensive, too fractured, too poorly mapped. Every effort arrived just a little too late to be effective. As years passed, the fire advanced beneath homes, streets, and schools. Some residents refused to believe it was dangerous. Centralia had been their home for generations. Others began to sense something was deeply wrong. Snow melted faster on certain patches of ground. Steam vents appeared in yards. The air carried a sulfuric smell that never fully disappeared. Then came the incident that changed everything. In 1981, a 12-year-old boy named Todd Domboski was playing in his grandmother's backyard when the ground suddenly collapsed beneath him. A sinkhole opened without warning, dropping him into a pit filled with thick, toxic gas. His cousin managed to grab him and pull him out just in time. Todd survived, but the message was unmistakable. The ground itself could no longer be trusted. After that, the government finally acted decisively. Studies confirmed what some experts had feared for years: the mine fire could burn for centuries. Carbon monoxide levels were lethal in certain areas. Entire sections of the town were deemed unsafe. In 1984, the federal government offered residents a relocation program. Many accepted, others refused. Some couldn't bear to leave the homes where their parents and grandparents had lived. Some distrusted the government. Others believed the danger was exaggerated. Over time, Centralia became a fractured place, split between those who left and those who stayed. But the fire never stopped. Underground temperatures continued to rise. Roads warped beyond repair. Entire streets were condemned. Houses were demolished, leaving empty foundations like scars. The town's population dropped from over 1,000 to just a few dozen, then fewer still. For the men tasked with maintaining infrastructure, the psychological toll was severe. Utility workers quit after encountering carbon monoxide spikes that nearly overwhelmed them. Surveyors refused to return to certain zones. Firefighters who once volunteered proudly began stepping away, aware that no visible flames did not mean safety. One by one, professionals walked away from jobs they had trained for, knowing there was no winning against a fire that could not be reached. Even government officials rotated assignments quickly. No one wanted to stay too long. In time, the Postal Service revoked Centralia's zip code. The town ceased to exist on official maps. Street signs were removed. Schools closed. Churches shut their doors. What remained was a landscape quietly unraveling from below. The most unsettling part was the silence. There were no explosions. No dramatic collapse of the town. Just a slow, relentless erasure. The fire advanced beneath empty homes, under cracked highways, through places where families once gathered. By the time each warning sign became obvious, the damage was already irreversible. Today, only a handful of residents remain, living among abandoned lots and blocked roads. Steam still rises from fissures in the ground. The air still carries heat in unexpected places. The fire is estimated to continue burning for at least another 200 years. Centralia was not destroyed by negligence alone, nor by a single catastrophic mistake. It was undone by delay, denial, and the assumption that there would always be more time. By the time the truth became undeniable, escape was the only option left. This is what makes Centralia a true horror story. Not sudden terror, but the realization that danger can move silently, patiently, beneath your feet. That by the time it reveals itself fully, the choice is no longer whether to stop it, but whether you are willing to leave everything behind. Centralia was caught too late, and the ground still burns. Story 3. Before we dive into this final story, smash that subscribe button if you love true horror, hit like, and leave a comment telling us which of these 3 stories creeped you out the most. Was it the underground cave, the burning town, or what you're about to hear? Stay tuned, because this last story will haunt your thoughts long after you close this video, and it's one you won't forget. In the summer of 1977, near the dense forests of northern Minnesota, a small logging town called Willow Creek became the center of a horror story that would shake even the most seasoned forest workers. The town was remote, connected to the outside world only by a single narrow road, and surrounded by towering pine forests that had stood undisturbed for centuries. Logging was the primary occupation, and families relied on these woods for income, making them intimately familiar with the landscape, but nothing in their experience prepared them for what happened that summer. Peter Halston, a 32-year-old veteran logger, had worked in the region for over a decade. Known for his calm demeanor and meticulous safety practices, Peter had led logging crews through some of the most dangerous terrains in Minnesota. He knew the forest like the back of his hand, the way the sun fell on certain slopes, which trees were likely to topple, and where hidden ravines lurked beneath the brush. Yet, despite his experience, he and several colleagues found themselves confronting a presence in the forest that defied logic and reason. It began subtly. Equipment would vanish for hours only to reappear in different locations. Tools were found deep in areas no one had entered, or stacked in impossible positions on steep inclines. At first, the crew laughed it off, blaming wind, squirrels, or forgetfulness. But the phenomenon escalated. Logs that had been felled and carefully marked for transport were discovered overturned. Their orientation changed entirely, as if moved by an unseen force. The forest seemed to react to the men, watching them and waiting. The first truly disturbing incident occurred when Peter was leading a small team clearing a section of dense pines. A low, persistent hum filled the air, vibrating through the soil and trees, though no machinery or natural source could be identified. The hum grew louder when the men moved closer together, then abruptly stopped whenever they attempted to trace its origin. Shadows seemed to shift unnaturally between tree trunks. Birds fell silent, and even the wind, which usually swept through the treetops with ease, became eerily still. One of Peter's colleagues, Harold, a 27-year-old who had grown up in Willow Creek, reported seeing figures in the distance. Not human, but humanoid, tall, dark, and featureless, standing between the trees, perfectly still, only moving when no one was directly looking. When the crew tried to approach, the figures would vanish. Multiple men reported similar sightings over consecutive days. None of them were inexperienced. All were adults who had spent years in the forest, yet their confidence began to falter. Peter attempted to rationalize everything. He suggested fatigue, heat stroke, and the stress of long hours in the forest as explanations. The crew reluctantly agreed, but tension grew. Sleep patterns deteriorated, nightmares became frequent. Equipment malfunctioned inexplicably, and even GPS devices, primitive but available, showed coordinates that were impossible given their movement. One morning, a logging truck was found perched on a steep embankment it could not have climbed, with no tire marks leading to or from it. By the third week, the psychological toll became evident. Men began abandoning their shifts early, refusing to enter certain parts of the forest. Peter, who prided himself on resilience, admitted in his later account that a pervasive fear had taken hold, unlike anything he had felt during dangerous storms, falling trees, or equipment accidents. The forest, he wrote, was alive in a way that watched, judged, and waited. Then came the incident that finally ended the logging operations. Peter's team had set up camp near a ravine where several unexplained events had occurred. During the night, a member of the crew noticed an unnatural fog rolling through the trees, glowing faintly in the moonlight. Figures moved within the fog, appearing closer with each second yet vanishing whenever anyone tried to confront them. Peter himself felt a pressure in his chest, as though the air had thickened and a weight pressed down on him, preventing him from moving freely. By dawn, 3 men refused to leave their tents. One had become catatonic, staring at the edge of the forest without speaking. Others were shaking uncontrollably. When Peter attempted to rouse them, they screamed that they were here and refused to follow him outside. Equipment was abandoned. Food was left to spoil. Peter finally realized that whatever they were confronting could not be fought, reasoned with, or ignored. Local authorities were called. When they arrived, they reported the forest was empty, quiet, and normal, with no tangible evidence of intrusion or activity. But the men who had witnessed it could not be swayed. Several logging companies refused to operate in the area thereafter. Peter and others permanently quit their profession, leaving behind years of training, experience, and livelihood. Even casual visitors who attempted to enter the area reported feelings of dread, nausea, and disorientation, suggesting the forest itself retained some form of psychological effect. Over the next decade, multiple studies attempted to catalog the unusual phenomena at Willow Creek. Researchers found no evidence of animals capable of the behaviors described, no magnetic anomalies, and no natural explanations for the events. Environmental psychologists concluded that the combination of isolation, stress, and familiarity with the terrain might explain part of the fear, yet they could not account for the precise and repeated nature of the sightings, the physical displacements of equipment, or the distinct psychological collapse of trained adults. The aftermath extended beyond the forest. Families of the men who quit reported long-term anxiety, insomnia, and reluctance to venture into wooded areas at all. Peter himself moved to a coastal city, yet in interviews years later, he admitted he dreams about the Willow Creek forest almost nightly, and that the oppressive, observing sensation remains with him. The logging area remains untouched. Access is restricted due to both private ownership and unexplained hazards. This story is one of true horror caught too late, a place that tested the limits of human endurance, perception, and courage. It was not sudden, and it was not violent in the conventional sense, yet the fear it instilled was profound, permanent, and real. The forest waited, observing each movement, every attempt at rationalization, until the men realized they could not win. Even now, Willow Creek's forest remains largely unexplored. Visitors report strange chills, feelings of being watched, and unexplained movement in peripheral vision. The logging roads have grown over. The abandoned equipment rusts slowly. The men who left still speak of it quietly, with heavy pauses, as if voicing the story aloud risks attracting attention from something they cannot define. It stands as a chilling testament to the power of environment, isolation, and fear that cannot be fully understood until it is experienced firsthand. And just as in the cave or the burning town, by the time the danger was realized, it was already too late for those who confronted it, leaving only memories, trauma, and an area that continues to resist human intrusion. The Willow Creek Forest, like Nutty Putty Cave in Centralia, is a stark reminder that true horror often doesn't announce itself. It grows quietly, patiently, beneath our notice. And for those who encounter it too late, survival may mean walking away from everything they once relied upon, forever changed by the experience.